Well, I just want to welcome Shalanah Dawson once again to the JavaScriptMN stage. Shalanah's been a really awesome supporter, many numerous time presenter at this event, and we're so excited to have you here with us again today, Shalanah. Um, I I can't give a succinct bio of anybody to save my life, but I will say that I know you've been one of the foremost um, kind of people in the space around um, just building really high touch user interfaces for many years now. From the first demos you gave at JavaScriptMN of some rich browser-based editors that you created, and I apologize, my voice is my voice is I'm losing my voice right now. Um, as well as when you demoed Spiral Betty for us and Kind Cloud. I just know that there's been so many things that you brought and shared with us related to just like a really deep knowledge of the web platform, respect for the web platform, and the occasional joke about Safari. Safari and Safari's lack of respect for the web platform. And
Maybe more of that.
I'm sure that part will come in today too. So yeah, just know that we're really grateful you're here. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, I have to ask the whole can you guys see my screen question? I have to ask it. Yeah? Sorry, I didn't
Yep.
see. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
we're good.
sweet. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And hi, I'm Shalanah, and this is solving the in-app escape room. In 2018, I created the site Spiral Betty just for fun. And what users do is they upload an image and then it spiralizes and then you download it. That is what it does. That is all that it does. And it started to take off, which is really cool. And I started getting messages like this. It doesn't let me save my spiral. And that's awful because that's the whole point of the site is to be able to download this filter you've created. And then I kept getting more of them. And as you get these comments, you start thinking perhaps it's, user error. Maybe they don't know that it's in their photos folder or their files folder. And then you start asking questions like, what device are you using and what browser are you using so that you can go ahead and try to make it happen on your devices. And I could not replicate anything that they gave me. And that was very frustrating, I'm sure, for them. And there's so many of these messages. This is definitely happening. And basically, the site is not working. And that's awful. And then I finally realized that it was all because they had come from a link from TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and we're in an in-app browser. And in these in-app browsers, downloads are turned off. So these in-app browsers were basically breaking my website, which is awful. What are in-app browsers? So in-app browsers are embedded browsers within these native apps on your phone and tablets. And there's definitely pros and cons to them. So they are super smooth. You don't have to have an animation that goes out to like Safari or whatever other browser you have on your phone. It just kind of stays within that app. But they're also very confusing. Not a single user told me, hey, I clicked on Facebook link and then I got into an in-app browser and I couldn't download it from there. I didn't get that from a single person. The app, whoever created it, can inject JavaScript and CSS. They could track you. So, I mean, I guess depending upon who you are, whether or not that's a pro or a con. And then deduping content. I actually think this is why in-app browsers were created. So that you have a business and you have a web team and you have an app team and you decide, let's not redo that about page. Let's not redo that terms and conditions page. Let's just throw it in a web view and call it a day. And I really do think that was maybe the primary reason. I'm not sure, but it's kind of the feeling I get. Downloads are disabled by default in all in-app browsers. This goes for Mac products and Android devices alike. So you can turn on downloads as an app developer, but few have done that. Okay, so you can't really escape in-app experiences. You have TikTok uses them. Facebook is all in on them. So Facebook uses an in-app. Instagram does. Messenger does. I think is it like, yeah, is it WeChat or something like that uses them. Twitter and LinkedIn uses them on the iOS side of things, but not on the Android side. And then Snapchat also uses them. So they're everywhere. There was a study done in 2020 that said 88% of the time that people are spending on their phones are within an app. And that means only 12% of the time are they within a browser. And but they could not tell how much of that time was spent in-app browsers, how much time was spent browsing the web within TikTok or within Facebook. And so these social media apps are basically becoming kind of browsers themselves in a way, and users don't really know it. So you can oh gosh, I hate testing these things. So first of all, you need a physical device, and then you need to download the app, and then you need to create a user account, and then you need to post a link. And this link could be maybe private if it's a message to yourself, or in Facebook, you can do like, you only post it to yourself as well. And then you can test it. So that's a lot of steps and gets overwhelming and kind of crazy. So I created a website to help you with that, but it's mostly so that you don't have to keep redeploying your site. I'll talk a little bit more about this site a little bit later. So we're here to escape in-app browser. That's the point, so that users can download things like they would in their regular browser. So what do we have at our disposal? On NPM, we have a couple of different libraries. So we have in-app spy, and I created in-app spy. It's a fork and refactor of detect in-app. So detect in-app is a great library. They just haven't kept it up to date. So while I was working on these talks, I was like, might as well do this while I'm planning and getting ready for these things. So Bowser is a pretty battle-tested library. It's not perfect, but it's really great for OS and browser detection. And then I don't know, is it Aruda? I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I'll show it a little bit later, but it's a really cool little console for mobile browsers and really helpful when you're in-app browsers as well. What is my browser website is a great UA parser. It has a lot of ads on it, but if someone gives you a UA parse or UA, you can just parse it really quickly, and it's really helpful that way. Okay, so we're going to escape Android, and here are our steps. We have detect whether or not we're in an in-app browser, and whether we're in an Android device, basically non-Apple. And then we're going to auto redirect to their default browser. And then we're going to show some backup UI if they don't auto redirect, or they say they don't want to redirect. For Spiral Betty, this is what I show as the backup UI. So you can click that open Spiral Betty and it will bring them to their default browser, which is great. That's awesome. So they can have a good experience and download those images. Here are the steps. So we detect in-app and non-Apple with in-app spy and Bowser. And then you try auto redirecting via an intent link. These are really cool. I'm not an Android developer, but I guess they're called like deep linking or something like that. And what they are these links that help you get into like an app page. And then they also have backups. You can have a backup URL. And this is your backup URL that you can use. A pro tip, you might want to put like a query string on the end of it, just in case in-app spy is detecting improperly. You don't want to get into like an infinite loop there. So you would be like, let's not redirect if it has this on its query string when you come into the site. And then you just serve up that same link in your UI, and then you can get out. That's great. So your users can actually download things, which is, I don't know, once this was in place, I was very happy. Now we're going to escape iOS. And so it's the same game plan. We're going to detect if it's in-app, and we're going to detect if it's Apple. And but before we get started, I need to make sure that this is as accurate as possible. So we need to make sure that this whole room is what it would feel like to be a web dev on iOS. And first of all, we need to make sure we get rid of all of these features. Like, why do we have a shield? That's too much. Why do we have this trunk full of helpful clues? We got to get rid of those. So that is much more like what it's like to be a web dev on iOS. And do you guys see that huge security risk? That huge security risk, that fire in the upper right corner? There's no way we can give web devs fire. That is awful. We cannot do that. We're going to give it to app devs, but no way are we giving that to web devs. So let's take away that fire. So that's really good. This is starting to feel accurate. There's one thing I feel like there's missing, and we need to lock all the users into the same rendering engine. So everything is, Safari, or like one step behind Safari, WebKit. So Chrome is WebKit. Firefox is WebKit. Opera is WebKit. They all need to be basically Safari or a shitter Safari, basically across the board. And that's pretty good. This is what it feels like to be a web dev working on iOS. And I forgot to mention, of course, you can't redirect to a default browser. And of course, you can't have that link to a default browser. So we are no longer escaping in-app browsers with iOS. We just have to deal with them. And so what are our options now? We can give some generic directions UI, something like this, which is like, hey, you should open this up in another browser and go from there. Make sure you don't put like an actual web link, because you'll get into a little infinite loop there. And yeah, so that's all you can really do there. There's a second one. You could give social media directions UI. This is like super specific. So like I do this for TikTok. I give directions like, hey, click on the overflow menu and then click on this open in browser. This doesn't scale very well, obviously, but I think it's really good UX. There is another downfall. Sometimes the UI in these in-app browsers can differ between your iPhone and iPad, which is not fun. But I thought it was worth it for TikTok, so I did that there. You can also experiment with browser app links. I don't use any of these. I don't think I recommend them, but if you can find a way to make them work for you, that's great. So I'm going to talk about the lower ones. So the Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Opera, Yandex, there are more of them. In the links that I give at the end, you can see more of them. But the problem is we don't know whether or not the user has installed any of these. So if you click on Chrome, the Chrome link, it'll be like, do you want to go to Chrome? And you're like, yeah, I want to go to Chrome. But if you don't have it installed, literally nothing happens. It's just like a blank screen. It just stays right where it is. And I think that's pretty bad UX, but maybe you can find a way to make that work for you. And noticeably absent is a Safari link. Of course, we can't get to the only browser that we know we have on an iPhone, which is just, I don't even know what to say about it, but I do know there were ways to do this, and they have all been scrubbed, basically. Every time there has been a way to get to Safari and to your URL that you want to get to, they have locked that down. There is this odd one that's a Safari search URL that seems to work. I think it's confusing to describe to your user, which says, hey, when you click on this link, you're going to go to a search engine, and then you should probably click on the first link. I feel like that's bad, but it seems to work pretty well. Like it actually, like it will bring you to Safari at least, but I mean, going to like Google on that is a little odd. But maybe that works for you. Maybe you want to try to use that link. So I want to show you the debugging in-app browser to give you a better idea of what this is like. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go to inappdebugger.com. And this is Safari. So things should be good here. We've got the top part is browser information, and then this is your UA, and you can, or user agent, and you can copy that if you want. And then in-app is not detected, which is great. And let's click on the information there. So it talks about using in-app spy, and if there's an issue, to report it. And then we will scroll down a little bit. Here are our download tests. There are two of them. One is like creating an asset on the fly, and the other one is a static asset that is on the web, basically, and downloading on an A tag base. Yeah. So the first one, let's try it out. What does it feel like in regular Safari to download? And this is what happens, and that's great. I feel like that's a good experience. Let's click on the second one, and same deal. I feel like that is expected and good. And then here are my iOS in-app escape links that you can try. So here is Chrome, and then I can open up there, and it brings me to Chrome, and it brings me to example.com, which is what we wanted, which is cool. But of course, if you don't have Chrome installed, I think it just kind of, nothing happens. It just sits there. Here's the Android in-app escape links. Of course, you can't test this on an iPhone, but just showing you that it will be there if you are testing on an Android device. And then the Safari search is not going to work here because we're already in Safari. Okay, so that is how it works in app debugger on regular Safari. If I go to, let's say, Messenger, and I'm going to click on inappdebugger.com. And it is detecting the in-app browser, the Facebook one. And then you can see the UA is definitely different than regular Safari. And let's take a look at these download tests. So the first one, what happens in iPhone in the Facebook app. And if I click on that, literally nothing happens. That would be very frustrating. And you would think the website is broken. Now let's click on the second one, that's static download. This is also equally frustrating because you have, like, how do I download this? It's showing me the image, but like I can't click to download it. The sharing, like, that's not really helpful. It's a broken experience. And then you can try out those in-app escape links here as well to see if they work. Here, I'll just show you the Safari one just for fun. Here's the Safari search, and it brings you to that example domain, which is actually, it's kind of fun, but I would like it to be better still. Here is Gmail, and I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to click on inappdebugger.com. And what happens in Gmail is I get Chrome, I get Google Search app, Safari, and default browser app. Let's click on, I like how the phone is going off, but let's click on default browser app. And I don't know, that's something I should have taken care of. But if we go to the default browser app, we're in Safari, which is great. Really, that's perfect. Awesome. So let's get out of there. Let's go back to this and click on Safari, or what you think is Safari. So you click on it. And this is a different view. It's obviously slightly different than Safari. You have this done button, and down here you have, like, you can open this up in the full Safari. If I say done, it brings you back, which is kind of nice. I don't mind that. but let's go back to Safari. But let's try out these download tests. So I'm going to click on this and it brings me to whatever. This is so bad. If I want to download this, I have to click more. I have to scroll up, and then I have to decide to save image or save to files. This is basically broken. Let's look at, it's just so shit. It's so hard to explain. So you click on the SVG static download, I have to click more. I scroll up and then save image or save to file. So this is not technically the full-fledged Safari. Apple likes to kind of pretend it is. It's SF Safari View Controller, which is an in-app browser. And they kind of say, you get everything you get with Safari with this. And that's just not true. If the downloads work, I would feel fine. Like if these downloads were great, cool. But the UA is exactly the same as Safari. So it's very difficult to figure out that you're in this in-app view. Android has something similar to this, but it allows you to open it up in basically your default browser, and downloading still works. So it's not really a big deal, but iOS is a whole nother thing. Oh, I wanted to show you a couple more things. Let's go back to default browser. Down here is this little icon. This is the Aruda. And if you click on it, you get kind of like this little console, which can be handy. Just wanted to show you it in action. And then let's click on GitHub. This is in-app debugger. And just to kind of show you, I was doing some, for my own research, Android tests and how these things fail. So like TikTok and Threads and Facebook, and whether or not it is an in-app browser, whether or not you can download, and whether or not that intent link works. And that intent link just works across the board in Android. There's some that are not in-app browsers. And I guess they're like called like tab view or something like that, but they all seem to work, which is great. And then iOS showing kind of that table of things just not working. And then, whether or not that Safari search link and browser app link works. So I just want to show you that you have that available to you if you ever want to look at it. And here also I have GitHub Shalanah. And if you go to talks, you can get to all the links from this talk. So you go over to here, we're at JSMN in February, and you click the links and you can get, the slides and everything. So just a heads up, if you are ever in a situation where you need these things, which I hope you never have to be in, hopefully these links will help you out. Okay, so that's in-app debugger. Okay, so clearly there's room for improvement here. What are some ideas that I have? You might have other ideas to improve this. I should be able to detect if I'm in an in-app browser and if downloads are disabled without having to do UA sniffing. Like that feels, it would be nice if I could know whether or not this browser has broken my website. A meta tag could be cool where you're saying like, do not open my website in anything but a default browser, except for maybe these apps or something like that. Download should be enabled for all social media apps. People are using these as like browsers, so they should have a full browsing experience. And people also don't understand that they're not, so they shouldn't disable downloads. I also think it could be good if the user determines whether or not they're using in-app browsers or the full browser in their settings. Like they put it somewhere like if this content does not belong to the site, it should open in the full browser, and it shouldn't be like app by app. It should be a global setting of some sort. And I'd love if iOS did a Safari or a default link, but I would be super happy with just a Safari link that worked. That would be great. Yeah, I would really appreciate that. And I want to say thank you. I know that was a lot of in-app content. I have really enjoyed this community and being a part of it. Thank you, Brandon and Brian, for leading it. And yeah, just thank you. That's it.